Video games, like any art medium, whether it be music, painting, sculptures, cinema, or even books, grows and progresses throughout the years. Music has grown to be more than just pianos and orchestra. Paintings themselves can be seen to have grown into the graffiti and other personal art expressions. Even the art of cinema, which would be performances acted out in front of royalty, is now that of movies and television shows for all to see. Gaming itself can be viewed as a branch from that cinema of personal interactive storytelling, where the player is having actors of their own story play out a narrative at their fingertips. This medium has grown much over the last 4 decades and will continue to grow as time marches on. But I would like to take a moment to look back at one of the classics of our time. Hello, and welcome to Between the Cushions, a deep dive into the games that we have finished here on ArchiveCouch with either our Classic Hour gameplay or with the standard Let's Play with our other couchmates. I am your host for today's session, Blue Pyro, and today we are here to highlight the game Super Mario World. Super Mario World, released in 1990 in Japan and 1991 in the United States, is considered to be the icon classic game for the Super Nintendo Entertainment System. This game has garnered so much love and appreciation among the gaming community. It has been honored as one of the best in the series, let alone the genre of platformers. I'm no exception to this admiration, as this game certainly has shaped my love for the Italian tag team duo of Mario and Luigi. While most here in the States would know the game as the pack-in title that came with the SNES, the system actually launched with 4 other titles. F-Zero, a futuristic racer based in the year 2560, Pilot Wings, an amateur pilot simulator, Gradius 3, a continuation from the classic side-scrolling series of the same name from Konami, and SimCity, a city simulation game, a port title from the PC and revised with Nintendo's involvement. Nintendo would go on to release Super Mario World in the form of a bundle pack with the Mario All-Star Collection for the SNES a few years later, as well as a Game Boy Advance port, released in 2001 and 2002 as Super Mario World Super Mario Advance 2. The game itself is also re-released into the Nintendo eShops and Virtual Consoles, respectively, in the later years. Much like the previous entries in the Mario series before it, the storyline for the gameplay is simply summed up as Princess Toadstool, later renamed Princess Peach, has been kidnapped by Bowser, to which the Mario Brothers must make it through different environments to save her. Unfortunately for Luigi, though, much like the previous entries, he is just simply a palette swap once again of his older brother. It wasn't until the ports Nintendo would grant the younger brother his own sprite. But if you ask me, I wish they kept the palette swap fact that Luigi has a green tongue from this game, because that always made me laugh as a kid. While early entries followed a World Dash level format, Super Mario World followed closely in the previous entry style and decided to take over the world stage selection into its next iteration. The overworld is now connected. Progression through the map was not set to the typical A to B settings. While Super Mario 3 did offer a few instances with its shortcuts and whistle power-ups, it wasn't as open-ended as it had now become. Super Mario World introduced a new system of branching paths for the player to take. For most levels, with the exception of ghost houses, the overworld had color indicators letting the player know that the level had a branching path. If the piece was yellow, it was a single exit. If the piece was red, there were 2 or more. In this format, there were 7 worlds to traverse, with the 8th world being Bowser's Castle in itself. There's also a 9th hidden world, but we'll get to that in a moment. The levels themselves were based upon the section of the map that they fell in. For instance, if the map icon placed you into a pool of water, chances you were going underwater, if not skimming across the top. The previous set formula of the Ice World and Pipe World were no longer a thing, limiting the builds per level settings. Super Mario World introduced into its series a saving format, where players could have 3 different save slots on the same cartridge and progress through the game over time. In fact, many of Nintendo's games would go on to have this 3 save slot format, such as Kirby and Donkey Kong Country. Even though Legend of Zelda did have it in the NES era, it didn't seem necessary for most platforming games at the time. Where other games would take, though, a percentage completion of the game on the front, Super Mario World went a different approach and did a numerical counter-based system. There were 96 exits to pass through in this game's entry of the Mario Bros. Series. The player would be given a star on the home screen next to their save slot icon when the final gate had been reached. Exits themselves were not limited to the ending gates that were found at the most of every level. Alternate exits could also be found, such as a second gate, a key, or even hidden wings on certain levels. Mario games wouldn't be as memorable as they are without their power-up items. In fact, the items themselves have become just as iconic as the characters. The Super Mushroom, allowing the brothers to grow in size and able to take an additional hit before losing a life, and even the Fire Flower, which got a cosmetic change in this version and allows the players to attack enemies with a flaming projectile. These staple abilities make their return in this entry, but where the third title gave the Mario Brothers a raccoon tail or tanuki suit to fly, Super Mario World introduced the Feather Cape. Instead of a P meter to charge and fluttering to keep afloat, the player would have to learn the tilt mechanics, allowing their cape to catch the wind and fly across the level. The player as well would be able to now spin jump, allowing the Mario Brothers to drill through certain blocks at their larger forms, and even bounce off certain enemies without taking any damage. Along with these, a brand new power-up in the form of a rideable mount was now introduced, the lovable green dinosaur T. Yoshisaur Munchakoopa, or just simply Yoshi. Yoshi is one of many dinosaurs of his race across the dinosaur islands that the Super Mario World game takes place in. All of them have been captured by Bowser and were sealed away throughout the levels or at the ending level castles. This fan-beloved dinosaur was planned as early as the original Super Mario Bros. However, due to the limitations of the hardware for the Nintendo Entertainment System, they were unable to properly implement him. This fun little dinosaur was more than just a simple ride mount though. He was able to eat most of his foes in his way and bounce off others that the brother duo couldn't normally do on their own without a spin jump. Yoshi himself was a very capable individual, as he would display an array of abilities given the right enemies. Turtle shells, in particular, were key for this dinosaur, as red shells would allow him to spit fireballs. Blue shells would allow him to sprout wings while holding the shell in his mouth, and as well, if he held a yellow shell, this would allow a stomping attack to injure the foes nearby at his landing area. If the player was fortunate enough to find a flashing rainbow shell though, they would be granted all three abilities. This itself was a foreshadow to the other hidden Yoshis that were scattered across the land, as the player could find infant Yoshis of these respected colors, and upon feeding them until they were fully grown, they would always perform that specified attribute, no matter what color shell they were holding. With the exception of the wing exits stated from before, the only way to obtain these Yoshis was to venture into the 9th world of the game, known as Star Road. Throughout the world were hidden routes that would bring the player into the Star Road level. A star icon would appear on the world map when unlocked, and when used, it would bring the Mario Brothers in and out of the clouds. The levels within would present a more challenging set of stages, with a final set of stages hidden amongst them. This would send the brothers into the cosmic stars, while the Cloudline levels would present warp points amongst the map for the player to traverse in and out of. The higher challenges would, upon victory, grant new and unique sprites for enemies across the world. For instance, the Koopas would be given Mario-like heads as their shells, and Piranha Plants would get a more pumpkin-like look. The overworld would be drawn in a new hue of colors. While these changes didn't change the difficulty enemy behavior, it was more of a bragging right piece to show that the player had beaten the higher challenges. Super Mario World is actually the 4th entry in the Super Mario Bros. Series, and can arguably be considered its last. However, Mario would continue to grow and expand into other franchises such as party games, sports, and even role-playing games. However, the brothers would still hold the crown in the platform realm in different iterations throughout the years. While some gamers might not love certain entries as much as others, Mario has become one of the most identifiable mascots, and Super Mario World is considered among one of the best in the franchise. That isn't all I have to say about this game, however. There are a bit of extra change from Between the Cushions I would like to add in to this piece as well. First off, I want to address that I actually did not know this was considered the 4th entry in the Mario Bros. Series until doing the research and seeing the Japanese manual. For me, Super Mario World was always this standalone iteration and was more or less a reboot, if anything, when I first played it, and kind of still to this day. While I grew up with the SNES and I did play the regular NES time to time, this game was always my go-to for any Mario name. I would also throw in the Mario All-Stars and play through Mario 3, because the save function definitely made that game a lot more bearable, but I still love the games, and even the series as a whole. I love the warp star system that's in here. I just hate their locations. For me, it just always felt like the first two were stacked way too early. The third was an almost impossible location to access. And fourth was very odd and like an offshoot to a mini castle. But the fifth, I was fine with that. It's Bowser's back door. It implemented a speedrunning aspect for the game. I remember trying a few times as a kid to see how fast I could beat the game, going for those warp star exits. Ultimately though, it felt like I missed most of the game by doing that. There's nothing against speedrunning, just it's not for me. Though admittedly, I do like watching some speedruns from SGDQ or Awesome Games Done Quick. Those guys are amazing. For me, I just played the levels I felt like playing. It was so much more fun for me in that way. Part of the game that I didn't really touch on earlier was the hidden block system. I really actually enjoyed this. There's 4 power blocks that could be unlocked throughout the game, where they would create new paths or grant power-ups in the world for the player to utilize. Yellow is the first one, and it was unlocked if you would follow the left path at the beginning of the game and would give you the power shroom. Green was next. It was found in the second area and would grant the player the feather cape. A little bit more challenging. It was relatively easy to find. The third, even more challenging, is the red block, and that was in the cave system. And finally, the 5th area held the blue block. Now, while these final 2 blocks never really gave the player a power-up, they did create the thing that I enjoyed most. Pathways. I love the idea that you had to find these hidden blocks to create new paths to get to new exits. It just gave new life to other levels. Even the final level, to get into the Star Road, you would need to hit all 4 blocks to walk across the top. It was such a cool idea. Part of me doesn't believe the game needed more power-ups. And if you consider Yoshi and his 3 other iterations, that alone would be 7 power-ups in total, 8 if you'd add the Power Star, which I really don't count because that's a timed ability and it's not really retained. But it never sat right with me that the red and blue blocks gave nothing when you hit it from below. It always felt like there was supposed to be more, and yet, at the end of it all, there wasn't. Maybe if they added like the fire flower to the red block and kept the blue block as a Yoshi egg, or a random turtle shell for Yoshi to eat, it wouldn't have bothered me so much. But when you come off of an amazing game like Mario Bros. 3 with a variety of the Tanuki suit, P-Wing, Frog suit, Hammer Brothers suit, it just felt like something was missing here. Though running on with this idea, Yoshi's abilities always shocked me that they were dropped after this title. Granted, as future titles came out, Yoshi got newer abilities, such as his egg throwing, his butt smash, and even the start of the double jump theme that went into the Mario franchise. But the resources of the shells getting dropped, I don't think was ever revisited in any future title. If I'm wrong, please let me know in the comment section below. But if I'm not mistaken, the only time this ability is ever revisited is Smash Bros. Brawl with Yoshi's Ultimate, where he gets the flight and the fireball spit, and notably the yellow ability is absent because it's pretty much useless. Either way, Yoshi's colors in this title meant different abilities, and the green was just jack of all trades. But afterwards, the colors were only cosmetic, which feels really weird looking back. I mean, perhaps Nintendo saw this as too much of a Kirby theme, and that's why they deviated and went to a different path. And I'm not against what Yoshi has now, it's the oddball out to me that I just want to make noted. I will add though, another thing that always stuck out odd to me was the lack of world variety. Now don't get me wrong, I do love the interconnected world layout that they did for this title. It made progression across the worlds feel like you were actually getting somewhere. Now granted, in previous titles their progression was a numerical system, but when you can see Mario and Luigi progress across the map and see how far away your final destination truly was, it just hit home differently. But back to the variety point. Mario 3 had a desert world, water world, ice world, sky world, big small world. Yet, Super Mario World just seemed lacking in that theming. It's not exactly a criticism, mind you, it's just oddity in itself. In defense of this point though, I will admit there is a bridge section that could be considered the new sky level. There's a dark forest area, which exit-wise follows heavy influence from the old Bowser Castle path puzzles, only this one's far easier to solve. And I guess mountain terrain could be considered a new theme, so there may be more world variety than I gave credit earlier. Even the water levels are spread out throughout this game. If you stack them, it would probably be enough to be a water world. But most people hated the water levels, so making them far and few between caused the pain to be more tolerable. Looking back at it though, I think as much of a gripe I feel I am making this sound honestly goes to the game's praise, because the overall island the game takes place on, nothing really stuck out as a thorn to not fit the feel of the map Nintendo was painting. The world felt real as you progressed through. There was no drastic switch to make any area stick out too much. In conclusion, Super Mario World is a beloved title by many, and an obvious favorite of my own. For even being what is now a middle chapter in the Mario franchise, it certainly holds as one of the strongest. The game went on to sell over 20 million copies, and holds the title as the most games sold on the SNES. I'm not one to rank games, as each game has its own fans, its own merits, its own flaws, and in its own right is always a new page in someone's gaming journey. With that said though, I will say that this game belongs on the top of my shelf collections, where it stands of being among the best, and cherished for what joy it has brought to so many fans. I want to thank you all for watching, as we are trying something new for this channel. ArchiveCouch is primarily a Let's Play channel of playing through older games spanning from the NES all the way up to the PlayStation 4. So please join me and my friends on the couch as we post new videos twice a week at noon. If you like to listen to just the audio of older games, such as this one, you can catch them on our long play format, the Classic Hour. These uploads will be on every other Saturday at noon, and we play through old retro games with no commentary from start to finish, all for the love of the audio. Between the Cushions, we'll be covering games that we have completed previously on the channel, included in the Classic Hour. It's taking a lot of editing and processing for these videos, but when we can complete them, they will be uploaded on Sundays. I hope to catch you all on the next one. See ya!